happy musician gigging his way from venue to venue. That's how this way of working got its name. The gig economy was supposed to herald in a glorious new era. More and more people would be working as much or as little as they wanted, where they wanted and when they wanted. Sounds pretty sweet. But it hasn't quite turned out that way. Oh, and the music has changed.
Like worse than slave.
Uber drivers on the streets, not in their cars, but on strike against what they say are unfair pay and conditions.
We're all self-employed, and I want to stay self-employed, am I right? Yeah! We want worker rights now!
The gig economy was predicted by the work of Nobel Prize-winning economist Ronald Coase. His transaction cost theory said that firms only employ people directly when the cost of finding, supervising and paying outside contractors is higher than for internal employees. A good example is customer service, which firms used to have in-house, but as technology improved, it was cheaper to outsource the job to call centres. The digital revolution has reduced the transaction costs for outsourcing even further, not just to outside companies, but to individuals. Companies can then shrink to a hardcore of key decision makers and employ the rest as and when. The cost savings can be huge. Many industries are being disrupted this way.
I think organisations are looking at what are the capabilities that I need to be competitive, and traditionally they would have wanted to own all of those people and all of those capabilities. I think we've moved away from that. Part of the driver of that is the fact that the half-life of skills is much shorter, and I think organisations understand that they don't want to build every new capability that they need. They see organisations that can potentially do that better than they can, and they want to be able to access that rather than own it.
But the downsides are obvious. As a digital platform grows, it can become what economists call a monopsony, a single buyer of services from many sellers. To kill off any competitors, the platform has to ensure instant service for customers. That means, for example, plenty of spare, empty cabs driving around waiting for work. The driver of the cab, meanwhile, already heavily invested in a car, has to work longer and longer hours to pay off the investment. One easy fix for the gig economy then, according to some campaigners, is to guarantee workers the national minimum wage.
If you turn on the Uber app on your phone, anytime in London, any day, any time of day or night, you'll see a bunch of cars circling near where you are. And that's because it costs Uber almost nothing to engage more drivers because they're not upholding the minimum wage, right? So they only pay them when they're making money for Uber. But Uber needs those drivers circling around. They need to have some drivers with passengers in the car and some drivers who are ready to pick up passengers so they can reduce that wait for customers. Every company that engages labor has to manage supply and demand. Right now, Uber doesn't do it. If they had to give minimum wage entitlements, they might need to think a little bit more carefully about how to do that. But a driver who's circling the block, ready, willing, and able to pick up a passenger is contributing to Uber's business model.
But that isn't everyone's experience of the gig economy.
We did a survey on millennials this year. 14% of millennials said that they had chosen to work in the gig economy rather than full-time employment. An additional 14% on top of that said they were working in the gig as well as having a full-time job to supplement their development and to supplement their income.
Graphic designer Martin has been working in the gig economy for over 3 years.
I love the flexibility that I've got now, especially now with a baby and being able to help with the family. There's no way I could return. I just don't think I could return to just working for someone telling me what to do all the time.
But although Martin, just like someone who drives a taxi or delivers parcels, doesn't get sick pay or holiday pay or a company pension, he doesn't think he has much in common with the classic gig worker. The difference, he says, is power.
back in the day when I was working full-time, I actually had a different role, when I was more of a client-facing role. And you could be spoken to in any which way you wanted to be spoken to. It was up to the client.
What, people would be rude to you?
Yeah, really ruthlessly rude and quite cutting and very demanding. In this role, I'm fully empowered. If someone's disrespectful, someone doesn't like what you do, then obviously that you try and negotiate and work it out. But if someone's immediately rude, then I can immediately push back and say, well, hold on, nobody talks to me like that. So either we settle this and get over it, or I'm just not going to work with you and I'll find someone else I want to work with.
But workers like Martin are a real headache for the tax authorities. With more and more people working from home or wherever, companies need smaller premises, meaning less business rates for local authorities and big potential consequences for how much tax the Treasury collects as well.
For example, if you're a gigger and you want to work for lots of different organisations, you could structure your affairs so that, say, you took £8,000 from each of them, and say you've got 4 lots of £8,000. If you're an employee in each of those companies, you wouldn't pay any national insurance contributions, because you only start paying national insurance contributions once you get over £8,424. And neither would the employer have to pay any employer's national insurance contributions, because it's the same threshold.
So fixing the gig economy is not only important to protect the rights of low-paid workers, it's vital to protect the tax base. The question is, can it be done without killing off new ways of working altogether? An answer can't be delivered instantly on the back of a moped. The government commissioned an inquiry which suggested new designations of worker, but so far there have been no big changes.
I think where we are is that this is kind of relatively new practice for all of us in terms of the way that we work and the technology being available to allow us to work in this way. So I think there's a huge amount of opportunity for individuals and for organisations. I think we need to make sure that the regulation protects both organisations and individuals while allowing us to continue to evolve this new talent model, because I think it's really important for organisations and for the UK, and I think it will keep us very globally competitive.
But perhaps fixing some parts of the gig economy is just as easy as flipping open your phone and ordering a cab. According to campaigners, we just need to apply the existing law. Uber is in court next week trying to overturn previous rulings that says their drivers are in fact workers entitled to workers' rights.
But the fundamental problem of the lack of employment rights in the so-called gig economy is a lack of enforcement of existing law. And the answer to how to improve it is not rocket science. We need government to go around enforcing the law like they do in most other industrialized countries, right? And if we talk about power, I think that comes into it because the reason that we have a regime of employment rights is because we've recognized that there's a massive inequality of bargaining power between companies who engage labor and individuals who provide that labor. And therefore we need a system of laws to prevent the companies from exploiting that asymmetrical bargaining power and taking advantage of those individual workers.
So the gig economy, it turns out, is just like a music gig. It's all about power. Without it, it's very hard to be heard.